Hi everyone, my name is Joy Callaway and I'm a historical women's fiction writer. And today on the Right Away vlog, I will be talking about research. Yay! Research is interesting because people either love it or they hate it. But either way, as writers, we need it. Why is that? Because it adds credibility to your story, allowing the readers to fully immerse themselves in the world that you are trying to portray in your book. It's important because the last thing you want is for a reader to quit reading because of a little historical or research inaccuracy that you have. For instance, if you set your new adult on Duke's campus in May and you reference daffodils blooming, most of you from the South know that daffodils are long gone by now. Or if you're setting your story in the 19th century Bronx, you assume that it was as populated and bustling as Manhattan at the time instead of the rural suburban community that it actually was. Or if you're writing a fantasy and your fantasy story is based upon Scottish folklore, but in actuality you haven't done your research and so some of it is Irish, that could be a problem for some people reading it, and they may stop reading because of that and those inaccuracies. All that being said, you can get stuck in research, as I'm sure a lot of you know. With the wealth of information available at our fingertips, it's easy to spend months, even years researching. I know that when I begin a new project, I go kind of wild. Like I get in there and I want to look at all the old historic pictures of the time and read old newspapers and buy all the books on any pertinent topic in my era, or listen to certain music from the era, or watch different documentaries. It can take a long time, and there's so much out there that it's kind of overwhelming. And when I first started out, I remember that I tweeted to Diana Gabaldon because I just started a project and I was months into research and I hadn't drafted anything. And I remember I asked her, I said, what do you do? Do you start writing before you have all this background research, or do you research while you're writing? How do you possibly start? And she just said, if I waited to get all the research done before I started, then I would never begin. And so I've kept that in the back of my mind. It's always good to build up your base research, but you have to dive in at some point. So basically, after you have done enough research to authentically settle into your character's mind, it is important to do research to understand your world, and get into your character's head before you begin. But once you start drafting, there are a few things that you want to avoid in regard to research. First, remember that you're writing fiction. Sometimes it's tempting because of all the research you've done and all the cool things you found when you've been researching to just want to add it all into that narrative because it's cool, but don't do it. If you want your story to come off like a textbook, you be writing one, right? So as Cheyenne said a few weeks ago on her post about world building, you only need to paint the picture of what's going on in your main character's world in the moment. Weave factual things in organically, which brings me to the next point. Let your characters, not your research, dictate the plot. You want your characters to live in the world you've created as if they are real people, not just spectators on a highlight reel of an era. Did they probably experience some of the landmark events of a certain time period if you're writing historical? Sure, absolutely, just like we do. But don't be tempted to make every scene about the cool facts you've uncovered. Now, once you begin drafting, remember, research is an ongoing process. As you go, you'll still probably find yourself scouring the visitor's guide to the city that your novel is set in, looking for a restaurant for your main character to frequent, for instance, or scanning the Metropolitan's fashion archive for an 18th century costume for your heroine. But at the end of the day, weaving research into your writing is a lot like making sweet tea. Yes, it is. Doing it incorrectly is a lot like pouring sugar into a cold pitcher of tea. And anyone who has ever made this mistake knows what I'm talking about. Because basically what you end up with is a giant portion of unsweet tea and then 2 dozen pixie sticks at the bottom. So you do not want that. You don't want your facts separating themselves from the story, is what I'm getting at here. But if done correctly, if you pour the sugar into the hot pitcher of tea, let it cool, step back for a while, then go back in, put some ice cubes in it, take a sip. It's the perfect blend because the sugar has dissolved seamlessly through the drink. And that's the goal of good research, an effortless, undetectable enhancement to an already delicious plot. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. My name is Joy Callaway, and you can connect with me on Twitter. I look forward to talking to you guys. Bye!